My name is Claire, I'm 34 years old, and I haven't been able to sleep properly for months. It's funny how the quiet hours make you realize things you've been ignoring all day. The weight pressing on my chest at night isn't anxiety or exhaustion. It's something more complicated, heavier, and it all circles back to the same memory. The day my best friend introduced me to the man who changed everything. I didn't know it then. Of course I didn't. That's the part that haunts me. You know how they tell you love can survive anything if it's real? That's what I used to believe. My husband, Evan, and we had that kind of love once. The kind that made people roll their eyes when we walked into a room because we were that couple. Always holding hands, always laughing at our own private jokes. When we first met, there was heat in everything we did. Kisses stolen in the kitchen. Long showers together after midnight. The way he'd put his hand on my lower back when we walked through a crowd like he needed everyone to know I was his. But time has a way of dulling sharp edges, doesn't it? It didn't happen overnight. There wasn't some big fight or betrayal. It was little things. A kiss goodbye that started landing closer to my cheek than my lips. The way he'd come home from work and hug me, but his hands stayed stiff, like it was a reflex instead of a want. Even when we cuddled on the couch, it felt like we were two people watching the same show instead of two souls wrapped around each other. I kept telling myself it was normal. That long-term love just changed. That the fire turning into embers was part of growing up, of building a life together. But it hurt. God, it hurt in ways I didn't want to admit. One night stands out in my mind, like it branded itself there. We were in bed, the glow from the streetlight painting the room in silver. He rolled over and kissed me slow, like he used to, but then he stopped. Just stopped. He said he was tired. And maybe he was, but it felt like rejection in its purest form. Like my skin didn't spark for him anymore. Like I didn't. I lay awake long after he fell asleep, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was what marriage was supposed to turn into. A place where you loved someone so much it hurt, but you also felt a little bit like you were disappearing inside that love. Then came the moment. The one that keeps replaying in my head. It was a Saturday. My best friend, Mia, had invited us to this little neighborhood barbecue. The kind where kids run around with popsicles, and everyone brings their own folding chairs. Evan didn't want to go. He never wants to go anywhere lately, but I convinced him. And that's when I met him. The man Mia introduced me to. He was tall. That's the first thing I noticed. Not just tall, but present. The kind of man who makes the air around him feel heavier, warmer. He smiled when Mia said my name, and there was this flicker in his eyes. Curiosity, maybe, or something else I couldn't name at the time. Evan was standing right beside me, holding his cup of beer, barely looking up. And for some reason, in that exact moment, I realized something had shifted inside my marriage. Something I couldn't quite reach anymore. Because when this stranger looked at me, I felt seen. And I couldn't remember the last time I felt that way with my own husband. It didn't happen all at once. After that barbecue, I kept telling myself I was imagining things. The way his smile lingered, the way I felt something warm stir in my chest just from a stranger asking me how long I'd lived in the neighborhood. His name was Marcus. Even saying it in my head felt dangerous, like I was admitting to something I shouldn't be feeling. For a while, life went back to its usual rhythm. Work, grocery shopping, quiet dinners at home with Evan where the only sounds were silverware on plates and the TV humming in the background. The silence between us wasn't angry, not yet. It was worse than that. It was the kind that made me wonder if he even noticed I was there. We still kissed, sometimes. He still held my hand when we walked into restaurants. But it felt practiced, like we were actors who knew our lines but couldn't remember why the play mattered anymore. One night after dinner, I leaned over and kissed him, hoping, just hoping, for something real to spark between us again. His lips were warm, familiar. But halfway through he patted my leg, murmured "long day," and got up to load the dishwasher. I sat there, my wine glass half full, staring at the spot where he'd stood. Was it me? Had I changed? Or was this what marriage was supposed to become? The next weekend, Mia invited us out again. A small get-together at her place. Evan said no immediately, like he always does. He hates small talk with strangers, as he calls it. So I went alone. And Marcus was there. I didn't expect him to be, or maybe I secretly did. He smiled when he saw me, this slow, easy smile like we were old friends. He asked about my week, my work, things Evan hadn't asked me in months. We stood in Mia's backyard, talking about everything from books to the weather, and the whole time I felt this pull I couldn't explain. He didn't flirt, not exactly. But he listened. Really listened. His eyes stayed on mine like my words mattered. And when he laughed at something I said, this deep, warm laugh, I realized how long it had been since I'd made anyone laugh like that. Since anyone made me laugh like that. I told myself it was harmless. But on the drive home, Evan called to ask if I could pick up milk on my way back. That was it. No, how was it? No, did you have fun? Just milk. Something inside me twisted. That night, I crawled into bed beside him. He rolled over, kissed my forehead, and fell asleep almost instantly. His hand brushed my hip like it always did. But there was no spark, no pause, no moment of wanting me the way he used to. I lay awake again, my phone on the nightstand, Marcus's voice echoing in my head. And I hated myself for wondering what it would feel like if he were the one lying beside me instead. Because that was the night I realized this wasn't just about feeling unseen anymore. It was about feeling like I was slowly disappearing inside my own marriage. And someone else had noticed I was still here. I kept telling myself it was just loneliness talking. That's all. Loneliness can be tricky like that. It makes you believe in things you shouldn't. Lets you imagine warmth where maybe there isn't any. At least, that's what I tried to convince myself in the days after seeing Marcus again. But cracks don't stay small forever. Evan and I fell into our usual routine. Him coming home late, me asking how work was, him answering in one-word replies. We still ate dinner together, still went to bed at the same time, still played the part of a married couple who had it all figured out. But somewhere beneath all that ordinary, something had shifted. It was in the way I hesitated before kissing him now, wondering if he even wanted me to. It was in the way he sat on the other end of the couch scrolling on his phone while I pretended to watch whatever show was on. It was in the way we laughed less, or maybe not at all. One evening, after a particularly quiet dinner, I tried to break through the wall between us. Do you ever feel like we don't talk anymore? I asked softly, my fingers tracing the rim of my glass. Evan looked up surprised. We talk, he said like it was obvious. No, I said. I mean really talk. He sighed, rubbed his forehead, and gave me that tired half-smile that used to melt me but now just felt empty. Claire, I'm just stressed. Work's a lot right now. It's not about you. But wasn't it? Because it felt like it was. He kissed my cheek before bed that night, quick and distracted, and rolled over without another word. And for the first time in our marriage, I didn't follow him under the covers to wrap my arms around him. The next week, Mia invited a few of us out to a local art fair. Evan said no again. Of course he did. So I went alone. And Marcus was there. I told myself it was coincidence, though the way his eyes lit up when he saw me made it feel like something else. We walked through the fair together, talking about everything and nothing. He teased me about my terrible taste in music. I teased him about his obsession with old black and white films. At one point, while we were looking at some paintings, our hands brushed. Just a small thing, the kind of thing that shouldn't mean anything. But my breath caught like it was the first time someone had touched me in years. And I hated how much I wanted him to do it again. On the drive home, I couldn't stop thinking about that moment. The warmth of it. The way it made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in so long. When I got home, Evan was on the couch, half asleep, the TV casting blue light across his face. Hey, he mumbled, barely glancing at me. I stood there for a long time, coat still on, watching him. This man I had built a life with, shared a bed with, loved so fiercely once. And yet somehow, I felt miles away from him. I think it was the silence that finally broke me. Not the kind where someone yells, slams doors, storms out. That would have been easier, I think. At least anger means someone feels something. No, what cracked me open was the quiet. It was a Thursday night, one of those long gray evenings where the rain taps against the windows like it's trying to tell you a secret. Evan and I were eating takeout at the kitchen table. Chinese. We didn't talk much. We never did anymore, just the clinking of chopsticks, the occasional pass the soy sauce. Halfway through I said, Do you even like being married to me anymore? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Evan froze, chopsticks in midair. What? I swallowed hard. I mean, you barely talk to me. You don't ask about my day. You don't see me, Evan. Not like you used to. He sighed, set his food down, rubbed his forehead like he always does when he's tired of me before the conversation even begins. Claire, not everything has to be some big emotional thing. We've been together a long time. Things change. Yeah, I said softly. They do. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for a split second I thought maybe this was it. The moment he'd reach for my hand, pull me close, tell me he missed us too. But he just shook his head. I can't be everything for you all the time. I'm doing my best. And maybe he was. Maybe this was his best. That's what gutted me the most. I cleaned up the takeout boxes while he disappeared into the living room to watch TV. Like we hadn't just ripped open the softest part of our marriage and left it bleeding on the table. Later that night, I lay beside him in bed, staring at the ceiling while he scrolled on his phone. Evan, I whispered.